We back with probably my longest episode installment of What If Goku Was Raised by Frieza Part 20. And in this episode, Vegeta will battle against Prime Goku. But first, let's give a brief recap of what happened in the last episode. So let's get into it. So after Kakarot spared Raditz and Vegeta, the pair became bounty hunters. That is until one day they witnessed Kakarot's broadcast of himself holding the head of Frieza as a Super Saiyan, announcing to the Frieza Force that he is the new Emperor of the universe. And after witnessing this announcement, Vegeta decides to go solo and blast himself off to train himself to catch up to Kakarot, and Raditz was left abandoned, but proud of his younger brother's accomplishments. Eventually, Vegeta uses King Cold's scientists to inject him with the serum that would grow his tail back, because Vegeta believed the secret of unlocking his potential was through his Oozaru transformation. Until finally the day came where the prince challenges Kakarot to a rematch for the throne on the planet Earth. The battle was intense, and eventually Golden Oozaru matched with Kakarot's Super Saiyan 2 transformation, rattling the Earth with their performance. That is until Vegeta showed his true final form when he transformed into what we know to be Super Saiyan 4 transformation. Side note, it would be called something else in this universe. Put in the comments or suggestions of a name for that. But for the sake of this episode, we will continue to call it Super Saiyan 4 to keep it simple for now. And after Vegeta revealed his final transformation, Kakarot was no match for his new level of power and was left at the mercy of the prince, who decided to spare the low-class warrior by banishing him off-world, giving him his Saiyan pod that he arrived in to leave with, right? And now that we have summarized the last episode, let's get on with my longest episode up to date. So let's begin. Kakarot drifts in and out of consciousness as his Saiyan pod heads towards the coordinates that he typed in when he was exiled from Earth. And as the warrior goes on his outer journey, the prince is happier than ever with his accomplishments. We then begin the era of the Saiyan Prince, when he announces to the Earthland citizens that he will be their new ruler and weaknesses will not be tolerated. He then lets all of Kakarot's soldiers know that he will be their new emperor and that there will be some changes in their behaviors because Kakarot has made the lot of them too soft. Dodoria was made an example of when he tried to challenge the takeover, so he was beaten within an inch of his life by the prince in front of everyone. Zarbon decided to bend the knee after the display, understanding that he was outclassed by the Saiyan Prince. Vegeta proudly boasted that he ended Kakarot, and Bulma believed that meant Vegeta had ended her husband's life, which deeply saddened the Blue Net to her core. Vegeta also allowed Kakarot's son Bardock Briefs to believe his father was dead, so the young Saiyan hybrid would strive to become stronger and keep the prince entertained. And while that was all taking place, we go elsewhere in the universe. The Saiyan pod had finally reached its destination and lay in a crater on a seemingly unknown world with a purple sky. Kakarot exits his pod, worse for the wearer, but determined to find the one he was seeking. Kakarot is depleted of most of his energy. The fallen Saiyan Emperor moves at a slow pace around this world, searching for a specific someone, until eventually he finds the figure that he was looking for, a hooded humanoid figure whose back was turned, only showing a brown hood and blue Saiyan armor with yellow shoulder pads. Kakarot calls for the figure's attention with panted breath. The hooded person turns around only to see a collapsed Kakarot that was still injured from his fight with Vegeta. Also, put in the comments if you have figured out who this hooded person is before I reveal it later on, and see if you got it right. And meanwhile, Earth has another visitor. Bobbity grins in the comfort of his dark lair as he gazes through his ball at the figure of Earth's emperor, which we know to be Vegeta. Babidi planned to use the energy of the prince and his army to revive the monster Majin Buu. As he cackles, he tells Dabura that it is almost time to awaken Majin Buu. We then cut to Vegeta asking Zarbon who are the strongest fighters on the Earth, and who are the strongest fighters that the Earth has to offer for his army's ranks, and Zarbon plays ignorant of his knowledge of the question and simply decides to mention that the Earthlings hold a tournament every couple of years to display who is the world's strongest. Vegeta smiles at the mention of this tournament and tells Zarbon to put the word out for another event to take place, and to give warriors the incentive to participate, he will offer the tournament's winner the opportunity to challenge the Prince of all Saiyans himself for his throne. Kakarot, however, is experiencing lucid... Actually, I skipped a little bit ahead. Sorry, I'm reading the script. We then come back to Kakarot, who is resting in a tent after he was brought there by a mysterious hooded figure who watches over the resting Saiyan. Kakarot, however, is experiencing a lucid fever dream of former events that have transpired within his life. He relives his recent defeat against Vegeta, who stands over him triumphantly. Kakarot briefly thinks about turning Super Saiyan Prime like he did against the late King Cold. And in his dream, he does exactly that and becomes the Golden Beast once again, and is able to put the prideful Saiyan on the defensive with his new power. He even manages to defeat the prince, but afterwards the dream shows Primal Goku standing over a crying Bulma with a beam in his hand and a sinister smile plastered on his face. This last image finally awakens Kakarot out of his sleep as he jumps up in sweat before realizing that it was all just a dream. The figure removes his hood, and it is revealed to be none other than the Saiyan elite Nappa. And Kakarot frantically announces to Nappa that he needs his help in training his Oozaru transformation. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a crowd of Earthlings surround the stage as they await for the battles to come of its participants, and Vegeta looks down from above, unimpressed by most of what he has seen present. But in the crowd, a mysterious figure looks up at the unsuspecting prince. The observer is none other than the Supreme Kai Shin. We then go back to where Nappa and Kakarot were. Nappa looks at the determination in the eyes of his former enemy Kakarot, who was serious in training his Oozaru form. We then go into a flashback that will fill in the gaps of this reunion. You see, on the very planet Nappa and Kakarot were standing on in the present is the same exact planet they stood on all those years ago when Frieza ordered Kakarot to eliminate Nappa, Raditz, and Vegeta, and Kakarot succeeded in taking Nappa out by giving him a death beam headshot through his eye while he was transforming his Oozaru state. Then later on, Kakarot was able to achieve Super Saiyan and defeat Frieza by severing his head from his body to become the new emperor of the universe. Then later on, Kakarot was able to travel to Earth, where he sealed away the Demon King Piccolo, who fused with Slug in the hyperbolic time chamber. And after that, Kakarot then wished that Shenron would revive everyone he ever killed when he was under Frieza's orders to reset the progress of the late tyrant's expansion. This wish, as a result, resurrected the Saiyan Nappa along with the planet's natives that were purged by Kakarot as well. And Nappa was confused by the events and gazed at the natives he remembered helping to destroy. And at first, Nappa planned to get back to business as usual and begin to charge at the aliens, which, by the way, I decided to use the Canasans from the original Bardock movie just because. But then suddenly the brood halted and looked around his surroundings. Nappa was then met with the realization that he had been abandoned. There were no ships, and no Saiyans aside from himself left on this planet. Nappa then decided to wait a while for Frieza to send reinforcement to this planet to finish the job, so he would wait it out for his ticket off this planet. Alright, and later on, several months go by on the world and no contact is made. Alright, no contact is made. Canasan elders and village people have decided to try to mend the bridge with their former attacker and offer him some of their food from time to time. And later on, one day, the Canasans are met by a squad of new invaders who called themselves the Crush Corporation. Almond reveals to the Canasans that they will be conquering the planet effective immediately, and they began beating down any native fighters. Nappa's energy begins to crackle at the sight of this bombardment, and the Crusher Corps pick out the rising power on their scouters and are surprised to find another surviving Saiyan on this planet. Nappa charges the crew with ferocity and a battle ensues. And eventually Nappa is victorious in his battle, and is surprised that he actually feels happy defending the aliens he once wanted to purge. And he decides to stay on the planet with the Canasans even though he has the ability to take one of the Crusher Corps members' ships. And several years go by after this event. We jump back to Berserk Primal Kakarot, who was lost in his wild senses, being approached by Boma, who was trying to snap some sense into the Super Saiyan warrior. Kakarot uses his remaining senses to teleport off-world to a planet he hadn't been to in so long, which turned out to be the planet Canasa from all those years ago, because he didn't want to go to planet Namek or Yard Rat in his current berserk state. He didn't want to have to risk his him damaging the people or their planet. But then he quickly begins to sense life on this planet, so he decides to release all of his energy that is within himself to not cause any harm to the Canasans, and the power was so great, even Nappa himself felt it, even though he couldn't even sense power levels without a scouter. And the next day, Kakarot runs into Nappa and informs the Saiyan elite on everything that had happened since they fought on this world all those years ago. Which brings us back to the present, where Nappa agrees to help Kakarot control his Oozaru side because he gave the old Saiyan elite a new chance at life. Now, meanwhile, Supreme Kai-Shin makes his presence known to Vegeta and tells the Saiyan that the Earth is in danger of Babidi, who plans on resurrecting the evil monster Majin Buu. Vegeta is intrigued by this information and would like to face off against Babidi and his strong minions. While in the meantime, the World Tournament continues. Krillin smiles as he realizes that he's going to face off against Bardock Briefs, the son of Kakarot, but Bardock doesn't plan on wasting any time by pulling any of his punches, because he wants to get his revenge on Vegeta for what he did to his father. As he decides to become a Super Saiyan right off the bat to end things quickly, but unbeknownst to him, he was being watched by two Majin minions that plan on stealing his energy for the revival of Majin Buu. Bardock was haunted by the image of his injured father on the ground waiting for his death, because Bardock wasn't strong enough to make a difference. But his thoughts were interrupted by the pain of the energy siphoning experience at the hands of the Majin minions, who sneaked attacked the Saiyan hybrid and stole his power. Then the assailant takes off towards the direction of Babidi's lair, unaware that he was being followed by Vegeta and Shin. Then we change back to another planet. Kakarot is ready to begin his training despite not being fully healed from his injuries. And Nappa tells the warrior to wait for the sun to go down. Vegeta has been led directly to Babidi's ship. Shin warns the prince of the dangers of Babidi and his subordinates. But the warning only amuses the new Saiyan Emperor as he moves towards the ship, unbothered. Nappa tries to sense Kakarot's power level, but the younger Saiyan informs Nappa that he can learn how to sense ki without using a scouter, and that he will teach him the basics while the sun is setting. Eventually, the moon reveals itself and Nappa becomes a great ape that is in full control of his own actions. He then begins to speak to Kakarot in a deep bestial tone. He tells Kakarot that there is a reason why Saiyan elites can control their Oozaru form fully. The answer was Saiyan pride. Though it was true that Saiyans in general, for the most part, were proud, Saiyan elites were prouder than the rest, and because of this mindset, they were able to control the Oozaru fully, refusing to be controlled by their lesser animal instincts. Kakarot learned his Akari form so long ago that he never bothered trying to control his Oozaru form back in the day as a Frieza soldier, but he would do what needed to be done now. But now we jump back to the planet Earth. The Demon King Dabura was no match for the Vegeta after he transformed into a Super Saiyan 4 transformation. And the prince was so upset of how little a challenge he was that he didn't even bother to let Babidi use his energy to awaken Majin Buu. So he fired an energy blast directly at the Majin cocoon, vaporizing it entirely. Babidi was in disbelief and in full fear when Vegeta moved around and aimed his hand towards the wizard's direction. But before Vegeta could finish the job, his mind was invaded by the diabolical sorcerer. Babidi was able to manipulate the evil within Vegeta's heart and began to corrupt his mind into his new Majin servant. Babidi grins at his accomplishment as the M insignia forms on the forehead of Vegeta, who has succumbed to the dark magic. Meanwhile, off-world, Kakarot has made little progress in his training. After a struggle, he was able to keep himself from attacking anyone in his Oozaru form, but he still had his animalistic attitude and moved more on instinct than anything else, and he couldn't form sentences as a great ape. Nappa decided to congratulate Kakarot with his progress, but Kakarot was angry at himself for his failure to master his Oozaru state. And during his disappointment, Kakarot was approached by one of the Canasa sages who offered him a solution that would cause some discomfort, and Kakarot agreed to the proposition, wanted to get on with it. And suddenly the Saiyan was struck in the back of the neck, which caused him to shiver. Afterwards, the Canasa told Kakarot that he must meditate and look within himself to see what could be and what can be. So the Saiyan followed his instructions. And as he meditated, he felt a separation within his spirit that was within himself, as one hand is pointed up and the other is pointed down as he goes into the subconscious of his mind. Then suddenly Kakarot was met with the image of himself covered in brown fur that represented his Oozaru side. His Oozaru self smirks and tells Kakarot that he is the way to victory, and Kakarot's face is unnerved. Then his Oozaru side tells Kakarot that he only loses because of his weakness of affection. An image of his nightmare flashes in his mind as he remembers his berserk self blasting Bulma away, and his Oozaru spirit tells Kakarot that sacrifices must be made to achieve true power. Kakarot's eyes become yellow as he rushes his wild side, shouting that he will never become that beast that he saw in his vision. His punch connects, but only amuses the beast version of Kakarot, which further enrages the Saiyan. Beast Kakarot simply laughs and tells his attacker that his eyes tell a different story. He's already becoming the monster he despises. Kakarot looks down at a puddle to see the reflection of himself with feral yellow eyes, the same eyes as his opponent. Images of Kakarot's childhood begin to resurface, and he is told to not forget who he really is, and that he cannot hide his savage past with a family and a little title of emperor. He cannot hide from his past. Without the beast within, he would have died long ago, and he must remember that. Kakarot looks down as his eyes fade back to black as he remembers his savage side in his younger years, and the beast side of him believes his words have gotten the best of his other self. Until suddenly Kakarot glares at his Oozaru self, showcasing yellow eyes with black pupils at the center. I will not let the past conquer my future. I cannot separate from a beast and expect to control it with my eyes closed. I don't even have to be proud of what I was. I must be proud of what I can be. The two half smile at each other as the Oozaru version begins to vanish. The beast has submitted to Kakarot's newfound Saiyan pride. Not proud of who he was or what he had done, but what he had the ability to be, shaping his new future. Kakarot's hands come together and his eyes remain closed as his aura begins to rise. The sage takes a step back to as the Saiyan's eyes open, revealing a golden lens. Nappa smiles as the warrior begins to stand, sensing the change in his fellow Saiyan. Without saying a word, Kakarot puts 2 fingers to his head and teleports back to the earth on a mission. He had teleported to the massive signature of the transformed Vegeta, which put him right outside of Babidi's ship. And the wizard simply thought he was an earthling challenger that needed to be disposed of. Majin Vegeta smiled as he saw his former challenger again, but Kakarot remained serious as he glared at the prince. Vegeta tells Kakarot that he won't survive this time, and Kakarot's body begins to glow a burning yellow. Majin Vegeta is then face to face with Super Saiyan Prime Goku for the first time and is actually impressed by the transformation. The pair realize there is no more point in talking, so they rush one another faster than anyone could even see, shaking the world with their fury of blows every time a knuckle made contact with another. Each fighter experienced tunnel vision. As they solely focus on each other, the world around them is blackened out, as their electric auras flow through their bodies with each strike. Prime Kakarot unleashes a roar as he seizes the opportunity to fire a death cannon at Vegeta, and the prince was forced to defend against the attack because he wasn't going to be fast enough to dodge it. The smoke from the blast clears, revealing a damaged Vegeta, whose red fur was finally visible after the impact of the explosion. The tone becomes even more serious as Vegeta sets his eyes on Goku as he removes the remaining armor, as the Saiyan pair glares daggers at one another. Then the sky lights up with energy as the pair begin to blast each other in retaliation for a competition for dominance, vaporizing everything around them, including Babidi's ship, who only escaped the devastation with a magic barrier he formed last minute. Fire and ash encompass the duo, and the scenery amuses the Majin Prince, but Kakarot realizes that the Earth cannot handle this battle this clash if it's drawn out for too long, especially since Vegeta didn't care about the damage he was causing. They blitz each other once again, and the battle intensifies as each blow shakes the globe. Waters rage and rocks crumble at the might of their power, and clouds begin to darken. Kakarot knocks Vegeta through several rocks and can see that this battle is going too far. So his plan is to end the fight with the next attack. Vegeta's hands grow green as he charges a shining attack. In the hand of Kakarot becomes a radiating yellow blade. But the techniques never meet each other because Kakarot uses his other hand to teleport directly behind Vegeta and slice off the prince's red tail faster than he could even react, immediately depleting his Super Saiyan 4 transformation, putting Vegeta back in base. Bobbity, what happened to this image? I don't know what happened to this image, but Bobbity is supposed to be right here. Sorry about that. Bobbity is in disbelief at the action, and Shin takes advantage of his lower guard and vaporizes the wizard before he could put up a barrier to counter the attack. The Majin M evaporates from Vegeta's skull as he looks up to the victorious Kakarot, waiting for his death to come. Yet, to his surprise, Kakarot touches his shoulder instead and teleports the both of them to another planet. We then cut to our final flashback for this episode. Back when Kakarot and Bulma first became a couple and they wished back Zarbon, Bulma ended up giving Kakarot the second wish to do with it as he pleased. The wish was left a mystery until now, and it turns out that Kakarot had wished back the destroyed planet Vegeta, which is where he teleported the both of them in the present. Vegeta demands to know the reason for this, but Kakarot simply walks away with a smile and tells Vegeta isn't it obvious. He plans on bringing the Saiyans back one day, and before Vegeta could ask anything else, Kakarot vanished. Bulma was punishing her son Bardock for sneaking off to fight in the tournament after she had forbid his entry, until a hand was put on her shoulder. The brunette was not in the mood for conversation, so she turned around to argue with whoever it was that had touched her, only to see the body of a battered Kakarot right behind her. And that is where we're going to be ending things for today, man. I hope you guys liked it. Be sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the video, man. All right, see you guys on the next one. I'm gone. Peace.